The following podcast may contain some adult language. You've been warned.
Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all nerds! International. With the hyphen.
Okay, welcome to Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. This is a show dedicated to the Genesys role-playing system from Fantasy Flight Games, a show in which we, your hosts, discuss all things Genesys from both a player's and a GM's perspective. I am Tony Fanning, and with me, as always, my good friend and co-host, Chris Holmes. How you been, homie?
I've been pretty good. I've been trying to stay awake today because, you had our asses up till 3 in the morning. 2 in the morning. 3 in the morning.
It was a beautiful session.
Awesome. Yes, it was. And, by the way, thank you, Jamie, you bastard, for canceling this morning. I must say, I've been gaming every day this week, since Tuesday. So, it's been pretty glorious. I'm not gaming tomorrow night. So, one of these weeks, I'm going to do one game a week. But that's only when my wife's out of town. So, love you, honey, if you ever listen to this.
Melissa's off work for the next 2 weeks. I don't think I'm going to have any time to play at all.
I know. We love the significant others.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. All right.
So what we got for news, buddy?
Well, what we have for news is, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this before, Legend of the Five Rings.
Ooh.
Yes, of course we all have. It's pretty sweet. Nothing on the Genesys front, but they have incorporated some of the Genesys, some rules in it. I haven't really read the beta yet, but they just announced, I think earlier this week, that they will be coming out with the core rulebook, the dice pack. Yes, new dice, everybody. I hear everybody grumbling out there already. Oh, we got to get new dice for it. Who cares? Go buy new dice. Dice are awesome.
I don't ever grumble about buying dice. I love dice.
I know. I have so many around here. It's not even funny. And if you're not a true role player if somebody says, "Oh, I can't buy new dice," you can never. That's just too much dice. No, there's never too many dice.
No such thing.
Yeah, no such thing. And then they'll have a Game Master's kit, which will have an adventure in it. And if it's anything like the Game Master kits that they put out for the Star Wars games, the adventures are going to be pretty awesome too. It's good stuff. Yep. And of course, they're going to have the beta game, or not beta.
Beginner game.
The beginner box game too, and that's probably where I might start.
Those beginner games that they did for Star Wars, they do 4 of them. They did Age of Rebellion, Force and Destiny, Edge of the Empire, and then they did one for the Force Awakens.
Yep.
All of those are beautiful. They come with beautiful maps. They come with little character pogs.
Yep.
They come with a set of dice. They come with pre-printed character folios that have rules for advancement. Now, they don't follow the same 100% core rules as the game. They're kind of refined, easy versions of the rules.
Yep.
But they're a great introduction to the game for people. And so if you're looking to get into L5R, that would be the way to do it.
Yeah, and they are, and for the money, because those beginner games are, I don't know, I think they're $20, maybe $20.
$29, $29.99 usually.
Yeah, and the maps will, you'll get a set of dice, which are $12. Then you're going to get some, or $15, and then you're going to get maps, which are going to be another, say $9.99, right? So there you go. That just the maps and the dice that are definitely reasonable. Yeah, the adventure on top of it. And these adventures walk you through not only playing the game, but GMing the game too.
Yep.
And you do a good job of that.
They're well designed usually. So, and then the core rule book and all that, and they said that's coming in the third quarter, was it?
Is that what that was?
Yeah, so I think that's probably going to be something that hits us around Gen Con, maybe that shortly thereafter. They'll probably have beginner game at least at Gen Con, I'm thinking.
I would think so.
But I'm sure we'll see it in stores probably in September.
Yep, third quarter. It said third quarter 2018. So, yep. So that'll be, so third quarter is, next month starts third quarter, right? So yeah, sometime after Gen Con, I would think. Or maybe they'll be selling them at Gen Con. Who knows?
So in other news, I'm going to call an audible here. Yours truly, I proposed to my fiancée, Melissa, this past week. I'll be getting married next summer. So she did say yes. Miraculously.
You said many times too, right?
Yeah, she said yes a lot. Awesome. So, all right, cool. Well, we've got some listener feedback we'll go over here real quick. And I'll start with this one from Eric Fair. Yes, he sent me, first of all, he sent me a separate email explaining, or part of the email explaining how to pronounce his name, because last time he emailed us, I pronounced it Farrar, but it's actually Fair. So thank you, Eric, for correcting us on our my pronunciation of your name, and we'll move on to your message here. So it says, hey, first off, I wanted to say great job in explaining how talent creation works. I, too, have created class-based talents to act as upgrades to base classes, i.e. the mage to druid, summoner, or cleric. A passive talent, rank 2 or 3, depending on the class, and all it does is unlocks new knowledge, magic, or skills, depending on the change, making these skills now career skills. Good stuff. I wanted to thank you for pointing me in the direction of the Fallout conversion. I am working on putting it together still, but I plan on opening it up on Roll20.net when it is done. I also wanted to share my PDF character sheet templates with you guys, and we looked at those. Mm-hmm. And since I was curious if you think it is too simplified or if you have any ideas on how to improve them. And I give him that feedback privately. But I just wanted to say thank you again, Eric, for emailing us. And if you have talents you want the world to see, interwebs to see, put them up on the Fantasy Flight forums. People will put in a few cents worth, and it's usually good constructive criticism over there, as Chris and I have said before. Oh, yeah.
Yep, very good. Yeah, good job on those character sheets. Definitely pretty neat.
I love the pinwheel that he did for the wounds and strain and defense and
soak.
And soak. Yeah, that was awesome.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, I like that too. I like that.
Okay, so and then also we got a message over on Facebook from Ricky Buxton. Yeah, thanks for the shout out and love for the Talents Expanded team. Mm-hmm. We really do appreciate everyone enjoying it so much, and we do appreciate enjoying it so much.
yeah, we really like that document. Great job. That's pretty awesome.
Great episode recently, too. The talent talk was great. I should point out that a Tier 5 ranked talent can actually be taken multiple times at Tier 5. It's not worth the XP investment for most things, but like enduring or obviously dedication, it can definitely be worthwhile. Thank you for pointing that out. Chris and I missed that in our talent conversation. And so, yes, you can take, for instance, any talent that starts at rank 3, 4, or 5 that has ranks, you can continue to take it at rank 5. It just each time is going to cost you what?
75 x. Well, it's going to cost 25 XP at the Tier 5 level. But you've
got to have a whole row of 1, 2, and 3 and 4s to get to it. So it's about 75 XP each time.
Yep.
So yeah, but if you're one of those GMs that likes to run really long campaigns like me, where your characters end up with 500 to 1,000 XP, you'll see several players with several rank 5 talents.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. Yep.
So, I personally put a lot of when I get into high level characters, I have a ton of ranks and skills. That's just my personal thing. I like to really branch out my skills and. But talents, the right ones chosen perfectly. I mean,
and the more talents you have, the more confusing it does get. As I've been figuring out, I think my sniper in your Star Wars game has like 9 talents, or 11 talents. 2 of them are passive. Everything else I have to activate.
Yeah,
So-
if you're a player that likes simple, like for me, I love simple social characters, so I'll bank in 1 or 2 social active talents. But most of the rest of my talents are going to be passive.
Yeah,
So I don't
agree.
have to. I can put it in once and forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it. Exactly.
So we have a title for today's episode.
Yes, we do.
We are going to be playing with some encounter foo. Haw!
Wow, yeah, kind of a L5R theme kind of going on here. Wow.
And we're going to talk about, in the book of Genesis here in a minute, we're going to talk about how to build encounters.
Absolutely. All right, man. Let's get into it then.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Book of Genesis. So, yes, everybody, open up your good Book of Genesis to page 329.
Nope.
Under the
Nope.
239. I'm
Dyslexia there.
A little dyslexia going on there. Under the Game Master's Toolkit, Chapter 3, Build an Adventure, there's Constructing Encounters section, which is which is 1 and a little bit of page of goodness, of encounter building goodness. So when we're talking about an encounter, what do we mean, Tony? What are we talking about when we say encounter?
Well, an encounter is simply that. It's a scene. It is a encapsulated part of the story, whether it be a social encounter, whether it be a combat encounter. It's either structured or narrative. And it is, and we've talked about both of those before, but there's also other kinds where there's contests, which I, for the first time, got to run one last night that was kind of interesting. Just one contested role, but it was very interesting. So encounters are it's how we build our story. Now, there's a lot of, you can give your players background and you can give them handouts, but encounters is how you forward the narrative, whether it be through conflict, physical, or conflict social, or even an investigative encounter. Should be
like your skill challenges can be an encounter all on its own. Your chases through a city. I was trying to think of others.
Now I also have a kind of encounter that I kind of count downtime encounter. So that would be the downtime between encounters, when the players are just role playing and things like that. I kind of count that as a down, and that's very narrative and freeform, as I did last night in my Realms of Terranoth game. Yeah, it was probably like a 4-hour period in game where the characters were all searching around this rubble and this fallen tower, and the mage had summoned a earth elemental to excavate the tower for you. And meanwhile, your catfolk was off getting herself in trouble.
Little do we know, our characters though, we as players are like, what the heck are you doing? Which is, I'm sure that's not going to come up later in the adventure at all, right, Tony?
Oh no. I would never do such a thing.
Never, ever. Yeah, and these and this is in the build and adventure section, which we'll probably have another show on building an adventure and stuff. So your number of encounters is what builds up an adventure. Whether it's going to be a long running adventure, different adventures make up campaigns. That will last months or years or however long you want to do it. So, but we're specifically talking about building encounters today. And so when we are in an encounter, whether it's a combat encounter or a social encounter, we do have another question we want to ask ourselves. How many adversaries do we want to put per encounter? And is there a actual, codified suggestion? And actually there kind of is on page, which is actually pretty cool. On page 240. What am I doing here?
I don't know. You want this book to be bigger than it is, I think.
Apparently. So there's underneath the establishing adversary difficulty, there's a nice table there that we'll talk about. then there's some guidelines here how to establish the strengths of adversaries in an encounter.
Right.
And then there's some common encounter setups for a group of 4 PCs. So let's go through these. So we have 4 minions acting individually, and this says it's a good first encounter for brand new players. Now, typically when your minions act together, like 4 minions in a group, you're going to have 3 upgrades on the skills that are picked for that minion group, and that's going to that's going to hurt. So when they say acting individually, I believe what they're just saying is just take what? We're just taking their attribute and not anything upgraded? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, that can be. Yep.
Like
it's a great way. Like I said, it says here it's a great way to bring for a very first encounter. So I'm going to use my Terranoth game as a good example. Sure. The very first fight you guys had, you were just dealing with between 6 players. We had 8 kobolds, I think it was.
Something like that.
9. There were 3 groups of 3, but they were acting independently. They weren't upgrading their checks, so they were all over the place. And
they still may have like a 3 agility, to throw stuff. So they're still throwing 3 ability dice down, So what's the next one here? We have
2 groups of minions. That's 3 or 4 each in the minion groups. Keep in mind that when you get your minion groups up over 4, 5, you're looking at some really upgraded skill checks when they do that, because as we know, with which we haven't really talked about much on the adversary side of things, but minions, for every additional minion past 1 in a group, any skill that they have listed in their skill block upgrades.
Right.
So when we look at the core rulebook and look at a minion in the core rulebook, which I think goblins are probably listed in there. I think under the rune bound section. Yeah.
So that second minion in a group will upgrade. Say it's a ranged attack, right? So what is the agility of maybe a goblin? Probably 3, or what we have there.
I can't recall.
Yeah, so you start off with your 3 green dice, and then that second minion will upgrade one of those. So it'll be 1 yellow, 2 green. That third minion will upgrade it to 2 yellow, 1 green, and then a 4th minion would make it 3 yellows. And if anybody's been playing the game, they're going to be triumphant against you more often than not, probably.
Yeah. So keep your minion groups to 3 or 4, and when a group, like it says here, in a group of 4 PCs, 2 minion groups of 3 to 4 each is a relatively challenging encounter.
Yep. And then even a little more challenging encounter would be the next thing. It'd be 1 rival with 1 group of 4 minions. So that'd be a decent encounter, and that rival may have adversary 1. You may want to think about, just depending. If you have more than 4 PCs, say Tony, we have 6 of us, you may throw a rival with adversary 1 and maybe drop a second minion group for 6 PCs in that case.
Or, that minion group doesn't necessarily have to be exactly 4. I could have 2 minion groups of 3, and that would be a relatively challenging encounter.
And then during the encounter, you GMs and DMs out there, yeah, I say DM, you all know that. When you do have multiple minion groups, when they start dropping minions, no reason they can't form back up into your 3. A group of 4, you know what I mean? So you just don't have the one. Yeah, regroup. If there's just 1 minion left in a group, and then you have your minion group of 3 down to 2, boom, just put them together on their turn. They just kind of move together and start moving. That's one way of keeping it easier on you and still making it a little more challenging for the characters too.
Sure. Next step up, you're going to want, you could do 3 rivals. Now, 3 rivals against a group of 4 players is pretty challenging. In my case, I have done against my groups of 6 and 8. I usually will have 4 to 5 rivals.
Wow.
And that is a challenging. If you have a party of 6 players fighting 5 rivals, they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah.
Because they'll only be able to double up on somebody once. And that's really, really where your rivals suffer, is when they can get doubled up on.
Yeah. Yep. And then and then crank it up. Let's crank that difficulty up. I think we're at about 8 or 9 right now. 1 nemesis with 2 groups of minions, probably of 3 or 4 each. This is a difficult encounter for 4 PCs. It will be, because that nemesis will be, it'll have wounds, it'll have strain, and it'll more than likely have Adversary 2 on it, I would think. So everybody's going to be upgrading checks twice, or something along those lines. And if not, remember to put Adversary 2 on your nemesis there. And if
keep a sticky note stuck to your computer that says adversary on it.
Yep, as Tony
reminding you to use it.
As Tony just showed me in Skype yet again. Yep. All right, how about this last one, buddy?
The last one is when you're going to use for an encounter when this is your big boss fight.
Yep.
So your big boss fight is going to have 1 nemesis, 1 rival, and 1 group of 5 minions.
Wow, dude, 5 minions?
5 minions. Yeah.
Damn.
They're going to whittle that minion. They're going to either want to whittle that minion group up or quick, or that minion group's going to chew them up. Yeah. And your players will want to focus on the nemesis. They always do. They always want to focus on the big bad. But that minion group of 5 will chew your players to pieces.
Yeah. With
their skill upgrades, as long as they have a decent weapon or attack type. If they have like a very weak attack, then yeah, they're not gonna do a lot to your players. But yeah. And another note, there's some notes above that on when you're creating your adversaries.
The difficulty of them, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, using the following guidelines help establish the strength of your adversaries.
Cool.
Individual challenging opponent. An adversary, usually a rival or nemesis, should have attack skills and defenses comparable or slightly higher than the PC's skills or defenses. Yeah, don't make your nemesis for a small encounter with 6 ranks in something. 6 ranks in strength. Brawn, excuse me. Jeez, I'm going back to D&D terms. 6 ranks in brawn, and then give him 5 ranks in melee heavy, and a bunch of other stuff that he has. I mean, that's just overkill. It just only needs to be slightly higher than the PCs.
Right.
And then you can also give them a wound threshold twice as high as an individual PC. So a lot of my nemesis... you'll see my nemesis almost always have their wound thresholds in their 20s, and then their strain threshold will be in the mid-teens.
Yep.
So they'll have strain slightly more than a player, and they'll have about double what a player would have in
wounds.
In wounds.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, a slight change in even the soak value does a tremendous amount of difficulty up or down, right? I mean, if you take a soak off or if you add a soak, it'll add up. That 1 point will add up.
Consider that a lot of average weapons are going to be right around the 4 to 6 damage. So if you're giving an enemy, a nemesis, a soak of 6, it's going to be really hard for your players to damage it.
And if when they do succeed, it might be 1, maybe 2 points beyond that.
Yep. So just things to keep in mind. And then it says here about, what does it say about if your PCs are outnumbered?
So if they're outnumbered, you want to use your rivals and your minions with your combat skills and defenses that are about 1 or 2 ability dice lower than the PC's skills and defenses.
Okay.
So in that what do you call it? In one of these groups down here, if you have your 3 rivals or or arrival with a couple groups of 4 minions. That's going to be 9 out there, but you have your PCs. That'd probably be 4 PCs. Yeah, you might want them to be a little lower, like it says here. And then for advanced PCs.
Yeah, and advanced player characters. That's characters, when your characters start getting above 150 earned XP and into the 300, that's basically, that's an advanced character. 150 to 300, you're going to want to, increase the combat skills of any NPCs by 1 than what you would normally have. You want to add 1 more minion to your group types, like we listed below, where it says it recommends 3 minions, add a 4th one. Where it recommends 5 minions, add a 6th one.
Ooh, that's still nasty.
And increase their wound thresholds. Nothing wrong with adding 5 wounds to an enemy if you want that encounter to last a little longer. And you'll get a feel for this over time. It took me a while running the Star Wars system before I started to kind of get a feel for, because unlike the certain D Shift 7D system, where you have an encounter balance math that you have to do, you don't have that in Genesis. What you have is what feels good to you as a GM. You might have an encounter that your players blow through, and I've had this happen, where you have given them challenging villains and they chewed them to pieces in 2 rounds. Yeah. And you barely damaged your players. That's just the way the dice rolled. There's nothing wrong with that. Let them have those wins, because there's going to be encounters where you throw a lowly nemesis at them that isn't all that bad, but that guy all of a sudden has the environment in his favor, and your GM dice start rolling like mad, and your players can't hit the broadside of a barn, and suddenly they're looking at a retreat from a simple nemesis that they could have defeated in 1 or 2 rounds.
Exactly. like last night, didn't we have a couple of we had a couple of despairs come up right in a row.
3 despairs in a row. 3 rolls in a row.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you mentioned the environment there, Tony.
Yes.
And other than adding hit points, D Shift 7D talk, wounds, I must say, and skills, and wounds, and then the number of these opponents that we have, we can spice up these encounters even better. And there is a neat little table here, table 3, and at 3-1, elements contributing to encounter difficulty. Let's go through this. So we've got 4 categories here. You said the environment. Go ahead. What do you mean? What do we mean by an environment?
So the weather conditions, lighting level, cover, things like difficult terrain. If your players are fighting in a pit of rubble, they're not going to have an easy time maneuvering around the battlefield. No. And if you provide them with an adversary that has flight, suddenly the PCs can't move around, but the enemy can. So take a look at advantages that not only the players can use, but also that your NPCs can use.
Absolutely.
Monsters that can see in the dark and players that can't. Weather conditions that would include rain and fog, nothing,
or snow, icy rocks. If you're up in a mountain, if you're in a mountain pass, the ground will be slippery. There are times where you're traveling through the mountains. Very rarely do I get a sense that, I'm, like in Lord of the Rings, right? You've got them going through the mountain pass, and if you attack them there with something on the side of the mountain, that's going to be nasty. Except for if you have a Legolas kind of character that's just walking on the snow, who cares, right?
Right. Yeah.
There was something that popped in my brain here as well about the environment, but then it popped back out. I was going to mention something. Oh well.
Would it involve cover or?
Oh, that's what it was. So last night it came up. Is there a way to use advantage when you roll initiative? Well, I've listened to this podcast called the Dice for Brains podcast before. It's a Star Wars based one, and what they've done, and what I've even done too at times, is when you roll initiative, right? And there's that, you have your successes and your advantage. Maybe somebody rolls a triumph. What this guy had done was say, hey, pick something in environment. Add something to the environment. Basically, add to the narrative. Take your
there's a
advantage.
tree stump nearby that I can use for cover.
Yes, exactly. Those kinds of things. That, and though you may have a picture of what this encounter looks like in your brain when you've created it as a GM, bring in your characters, your players in, immersing them, if I would be so bold as to use that word.
Trigger word.
Trigger word, exactly. That will paint a picture in their minds as well, and they're contributing, and they'll be able to contribute to the narrative too. So, that's what I wanted to throw out. That's what it is.
Not a problem, dude. Yeah. That's a good audible. So then the next category is bystanders. What do we do there?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is your what's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, these are like your people that are around your crowds. Like if you're in a market square or whatever, and a fight breaks out, are your player characters going to be murder hobos and just start blasting everybody around, or are they going to worry about those little kids that are off to the side and shield them and move them out of the way? It does give them It does give more choices to the players to make, whether they're more moral choices or not. And then you have human shields out there.
And it gives also something for your social characters to do in combat. Having crowds. Yes. Mm-hmm. Now you have crowds that have an opinion on what's going on. Are they going to be an adversary? Are they going to be an ally that the players can use? Here's where your social character can shine in combat. He can convince these innocent bystanders, help us turn over this cart so we can create cover, or rush that set of guards so that we can get away, or quick, we got to get out of here because there's an angry mob 3 streets back.
Yeah. Or it might be an opportunity for you as a GM to kind of flip it on the players. Maybe a few people are, maybe a few of those market vendors have Uzis underneath their register and start pulling those out and join the fight right in the middle. Hey, that would be a perfect time and way to spend a despair. If one of your player characters rolls a despair, you know what? This butcher over here, actually, he's been paying his protection money, and now you're coming in here shooting up his store. He's gonna pull out a shotgun. And by the way, his young son, that's probably 6.5 feet tall, has 2 meat cleavers that are coming after you now too.
Very nice. So, that's cool. And also you can also turn the social side to your benefit as a GM. If you have a very charismatic leader villain, they can be convincing the innocent bystanders that the characters are the ones acting villainous. And nothing will scare your characters more quickly than all of a sudden the whole room looking at them like they're the villains. Oh crap, we need to get out of here.
I just watched the John Wick movies last week. And at the end of like the second one, where he does a little whistle and everybody in that square stops. Wouldn't that kind of have your player character drop a load in their pants? What the hell? Everybody here? Yeah, so that'd be kind of cool. All right, our next one. What's our next
adversaries. So how many adversaries and of which type are in the encounter? How skilled are they? Their soak values, the damage values. That's what we talked about already. That's
special equipment.
But I did not mention equipment, and that's the part. Their weapons and their special equipment. Again, nothing will scare your PCs more than your big bad adversary. They just hit him for 10 wounds, and they just took away half of his wounds, and all of a sudden he opens up his jacket and he's got freaking just a coat full of freaking healing potions.
And then his buddy comes around the corner and actually has to use gunnery to shoot his weapon, and talk about pucker power. There. I mean, woo.
Nothing like special equipment in the villain's hands. Anything the player can have, an adversary can have. So, and also, though, keep that in mind. Anything your adversaries do have, your players will have afterwards.
Right.
Because they're going to loot the corpses.
Yeah, so don't put anything out there that you don't necessarily want them to have right away. But, it is fair. If you use something against them, they'll be able to use it against you. And the thing is...
over and over and over. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And vice versa. So if you have one of those players out there that min-maxes the crap out of their characters and starts figuring out how to put on a weighted head on a big-ass hammer and eventually gets like a 13 to his base damage, pretty soon that player will probably see an adversary with even a bigger hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and then somebody's going to put the hammer down.
Right, Tony? I think I just gave an idea. Yeah, everybody. If you didn't catch that, my character's the one with the big-ass hammer.
Yep, Chris was talking about himself.
Couldn't hit shit last night, though. But anyways.
Yep. Exits and entrances. How do those work?
Well, how those would work would be... it's actually a good way to have, quote-unquote, reoccurring bad guys at some point. You'll want to make sure there are entrances and exits to the encounter, for adversaries to join the battle, for the PCs to leave, or whatever. How easy they are to access. And then, hey, are these is this market square? Are all these other people closing off the exits and blocking the PCs in there? Those kinds of things you may want to think about. Yeah.
Okay, then the fifth one here is kind of listed under the mechanical breakdown, and that's pacing.
Okay.
Yeah, pacing, I'm sorry, I'm calling an audible here, but under the mechanical breakdown here on this page, it talks about, how do you build for the game mechanics' standpoint, building an adventure is a matter of the PC's resource management. You're basically, their wounds, their strain, their once per session abilities, their critical injuries that they attain. These are things that you want to make them have to manage these things. Mm-hmm. If your encounter isn't making them manage them, why not make the encounter a little stronger? Right. So that's one way to tell you that you're doing it too weak. If they don't end up with any wounds at the end of the battle, make it stronger next time.
Yeah, you didn't do it right.
But another thing you can do is pacing. So one thing you do at the end of any combat encounter is you roll cool or discipline to recover strain. Well, their characters don't normally roll but between 1 and 4 successes as an average. So and maybe between 0 and 5 advantage. So they're really only going to ever recover about 6 strain tops. Mm-hmm. And I see the average normally is between 2 and 4 of what they recover at the end of an encounter. And if you have, for instance, a medic or a healer in the group, that player is going to need downtime to heal between encounters. If you space the encounters in a way that they are rapid succession without time for recovery, you can build a lot of tension and stress for following encounters. So each encounter that they've had previously that they didn't get to fully recover from makes each additional encounter after that more difficult. So that's where pacing comes into the considerations for encounter difficulty.
Yep, absolutely. Well said, bud. Well said.
Okay. So, and that's a tool you use very rarely, by the way. It's something that the players will get very frustrated with if you do too often. So, moving on to the next section. How many encounters in an adventure?
Well, actually, I didn't really read this part too well because it's more of the adventure part. But let's see what it says here. It says a complete one session adventure works well with 2 major encounters, 2 or 3 quicker encounters. Then a long adventure, typically 6 to 9 encounters. That seems like a lot, with 3 or 4 major scenes and such. So, and as you play, as you see kind of what the pacing is that your players and your group, mileage may vary, on groups. Some of them are slow. I've played 3 hours once where they didn't even get in through the front door, of the dungeon, right? So it'll happen, right? And you just gotta roll with it.
Yep, and there's your players may want to go in unintended directions and things like that. So better to encounter in one of my. We're going to go over our personal tips here. Have a couple of little modular encounters handy so that you can throw them if they go in an odd direction. So Leah, let's get into our little personal tips. How about I throw one up and you throw one up?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Go for it.
So, our first one, since we both have the same one.
Yeah.
Personal tip: set an encounter goal.
Absolutely. And the reason why, I mean, you had sent these show notes out, and you have great ones here, but I tried to add on to your list there. So, yeah, and I completely agree. You need an encounter goal. What do you put it in there for? Because random encounters, kind of a waste of time. Oops, that was my number 3. Sorry.
That's okay. There's
so let's do an example. An example of an encounter goal would be what?
Okay. So your players need to get into a dungeon. Well, they don't even know where the dungeon is. So you can set up an encounter where they try to find a map.
There you go.
There's your goal. Get the map. Now, that can be a social encounter. That could be a contest. That could be a combat encounter. That could be an investigation where they find someone who has it and then steal it from them.
Exactly.
So
can lead to a lot of awesomeness.
And that covers my second one, which is plan for multiple ways for the PCs to achieve the goal. So your goal needs to be broad enough that they could achieve it in multiple ways. Prime example, they need this map to find where this dungeon is, where this hidden MacGuffin stick is deep within the dungeon. Okay, well, the map is in the hands of a thieves guild under the city.
Yeah.
It's in their vault. Okay, now you've created an encounter and whose hands it's in. That doesn't mean the players can't go and try and negotiate with the Thieves Guild. That doesn't mean that the players can't just murder hobo their way down into the Thieves Guild and kill them all on the way through. And it doesn't mean that your players couldn't try to outsmart the thieves and go steal from the thieves.
Yeah, multiple ways to achieve it. That's right.
Right.
That's right. That's awesome.
Okay.
So my second one here kind of goes into kind of is linked to the first one, is to the goal, is the encounter truly needed? And if so, why? You could create a bunch of encounters in your brain, but is it really needed? And if it is needed, there's got to be a reason for it to add to the narrative, or else you're just stringing along encounter after encounter that really might not have much substance behind it. But if you do have that goal, you'll have a reason for it, and that'll give it more substance and make it more memorable, actually, I would think.
And if you've created this cool encounter that that doesn't fit, there's nothing wrong with taking that and tucking it away inside your little GM's folder somewhere and saving it as a modular encounter.
Exactly.
That's one of mine. I have these moleskins. I probably have 5 or 6 of them, and I keep one for each genre of game or campaign that I run. And in them, when I'm bored at work or when I'm bored at home, I jot down encounter ideas. And a lot of times those end up being modular encounters.
Yep.
It's with a goal and an idea of who has the item that they're searching for, or who is opposing the players. You can come up with just a broad encounter that can be plugged in at any time.
It doesn't necessarily have to. It doesn't. Yeah, like Tony said, it doesn't necessarily have to be fleshed out at that moment. Just ideas. Just write down the ideas. And I remember listening to the Order 66 podcast years ago, a few years ago, then they talked about something called the GM's Toolkit.
GM Holocron, I think that's what they call it.
GM Holocron, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. GM Holocron. That's basically what we're talking about here. You have an encounter. You have a set piece. Where is it going to be set? And you don't even really have to know where it's set at. And if you have those ideas, jot them down.
Yep.
And then
What's next?
My next one is I just mentioned that random encounters are a waste most of the time. Because it's basically, if it's a last-minute session you're throwing together, and your group just wants the game, random encounters could be a good choice at that point. But
one random encounter is all you need.
Yeah, I would think so.
One random encounter at any given time is all you need. Just throw a MacGuffin in the random encounter, and voila, your players will create their own adventure.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? You can even, and the thing is, what's really most important, I believe, in all of this, GMs and DMs, all of you out there, Star Masters, if you're playing in space, listen to your players. Listen to those offhanded comments that they make, whether they're joking or not. It's on their brain, and sometimes you can, I'm not saying throw it back at them, but you could pick up, and sometimes the story will just write itself, to be honest with you.
Oh, yes. Listening to them as they banter amongst themselves. That's why I encourage my players to roleplay. I'm looking for things that get the players interested in the story I'm creating and get them interested in the story they want.
Yes.
And I'm looking for those little hooks in their conversations. My cat folk who talks about how she's curious all the time. Oh, really? Well, your player hasn't really been playing that. Well, let's give you the chance to do that. Now you're wandering these ruins and no one else is around to watch you. You don't have your friends watching your back constantly.
Yes,
okay?
Everybody. I'm shaking my head right now as he's talking. I know. That happened last night. It's pretty awesome stuff. It's pretty awesome.
Okay. And then my next one, so this is all part of the modular encounter thing. I'll do the two of them together. Use unique locations and mix up the range bands. So what those two mean is unique locations. Okay, we've all been, I guarantee just about every one of us has been in if we've ever played a modern game or a sci-fi game, you've done a train heist.
Yep.
Okay, but Han Solo movie gave us, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, ignore everything I say for the next 2 minutes. It gave us a train that worked like no other. It moved like a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. And suddenly that train heist is slightly different. That's a unique location. Mm-hmm. That's a unique type of train.
Right. I'm seeing what I was looking at during that section. I'm like, oh shit, Chewie failed his athletics, his coordination check. and then Han is like, he gets a triumph, right? It's one of those things where all of a sudden just a simple thing of just turning that train to the, tilting it over sideways and make an athletics check right in the middle of the combat. What the hell? I mean, that's good stuff, man. That's good.
That's a unique location. The top of a skyscraper, the bottom of the ocean, outside of a space station in spacesuits.
Yep.
There are a million different ways to slice an encounter. You can come up with a unique location for your encounter to occur. And what I mean by unique is, like Chris said, it has an environmental condition that affects combat.
Yeah.
It has that is gold for a GM using locations like that. Yes, your characters can always fight in a tavern. Okay?
Yep.
If you want your characters to get into a bar brawl in a tavern, that is wonderful. But what if it's a tavern that is 3 miles away from an exploding volcano?
Yeah.
And everyone wants to get out of the bar where the fight is happening because it's raining lava.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, that'd be unique.
All right, what do you got next, bud?
What do I have next? I actually mentioned it in our up above is plan for a bad guy escape. Just in case it feels like a good recurring bad guy. Now, if you do this all the time with your players, they will get pissed. I'll tell you that right now. I want to be able to kill the bad guy most of the time, but when it is feeling like, oh man, like you just have when I say feels like a good recurring bad guy, all of you GMs and DMs out there know what I'm talking about. When a combat is becoming one of those once in a gaming lifetime encounters where it is going to be very memorable, right? You might want that bad guy to escape.
Or
Bring
your
him back.
villain was so he annoyed the PCs so much with his actions and his that is the way I once had and I had an Illithid, a Mind Flayer when I played D Shift 7D that it mocked the players as it was just walking all over them in one encounter and got away. And for the rest of that campaign, he would appear and mock them and disappear. And by the end of that campaign, the villain had gotten beat up so many times for them, I had to create him as a lich. And he was an Illithid lich that this was their arch nemesis at the end of it all. And when they finally killed that guy, they stood up and cheered. And there was a freaking damn near a party held at my table because they were just so excited as after a 6-7 month campaign, they finally got to freaking kill that guy.
Yep.
So yeah, it makes for very memorable moments.
Yeah, and it only takes a moment or two just to think about how your bad guy could escape, like we had said, exits and entries into the encounter and whatnot.
And if there isn't one, if you didn't build one in the encounter and you find that is happening, I have only done this twice, and I discussed this the other night when I did it the second time on my Star Wars game the other night. I have only done it twice in all the years I've been running Star Wars and Genesis. Flip a story point.
Yep.
Flip a GM story point and say, all right, I'm flipping a GM story point and my villain is getting away.
Yep.
And here's how it's going to happen. And yeah, you kind of take away a little bit of the player agency. Oh, they don't get a chance to kill him, or they don't get a chance to see where he went or anything like that. But when you bring him back later and they get to take him out, they'll appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah, we were like, what? And, it's one of those things, if you haven't experienced the whole recurring bad guy thing before, it makes it memorable for sure. For sure.
Yep. And come up with a good reason for it. Like I said, I've only done it. I've run this over maybe 200 separate nights of adventuring. I've done it twice.
Yeah.
And once was a few days ago.
Yeah, you don't want to do it all the time. Very rarely should you do something like that. And yeah.
So
what you got next?
Next I have use cliches. So and so the Weasley little wizard that can't breathe very well and is weak, and then he has this big burly dumb fighter that's with him. Those are cliches. We all know those cliches. We see them, but
Dragonlance.
use them a few times and then turn them on their head. So contradict the cliche. So they're going to see this wiry guy and think, oh, here's another wiry wizard. This guy's I'm going to send my fighter forward. He's going to beat the piss out of that guy so he can't cast spells. All of a sudden, in Genesis, this wiry wizard pulls out daggers and just starts stabbing him at freaking massively fast speed before the guy can even attack. And all of a sudden, this is a really agile melee fighter as well as being a wizard. Uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Now your big burly fighter that you sent forward to punch the mage in the face so he couldn't cast spells is now sitting with a bunch of pinholes in him because you played to a cliche several times and then flip it, contradict it.
Cool. I like that. I like that a lot. Now, what if that wiry wizard, dagger stabby McStab guy, was I don't know, cousin of the PC, of one of your PCs in the group? You know, a personal connection to the PC, if you can. I mean, I tend, if you're creating a long campaign, right? For one shots, not so much probably. Maybe even a short adventure that's going to last maybe, a couple of gaming months. Maybe not. But if it's going to be a longer thing, what I try to do is I try and create a personal connection. Pick a PC in a group. And if you've had your players write backgrounds for your characters, or if you've been listening to them talk over the course of the campaign, and they throw out tidbits, I want to go see my cousin. Wonder what he's up to. Oh, he's become a stabby McStab wizard dude now, who's kind of pissed that you left the family and you haven't been back for a while or something like that. Make an encounter or a series of or like maybe an adventure relatable to a PC in the group, and again, be a little more memorable. Maybe that tavern, that the cliche that you would use, like Tony said, that tavern owner, that your PCs meet in, the tavern that you meet in the tavern, you make a memorable NPC there, and they end up leaving and going on an adventure, and if they come back to this town and this tavern's burned, they might want to figure out what the hell happened, and there's could be a personal connection there with them. Hey, they need to find out who murdered this bartender.
If you create a lovable NPC that your players love, make bad things happen to that NPC.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great hook.
And that's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
All right, that's all that I had on my list.
Yeah, and the last two I have are really kind of go together, and that is mix up your encounters. So mix up your encounters with social skill challenges, contests. Okay, and fights. So you've got a combat encounter. Okay, fight in a bar. Well, what if instead of a fight in a bar, it becomes a dance-off in a bar against a rival band? Or it's a skill challenge where the players, an investigative encounter a lot of times is a skill challenge where your players are trying to get something done, a mission, and they have all these little bits and pieces where you have 6 or 7 different skills that they can roll. Create a skill challenge. Give them a certain number of successes before they get a certain number of failed checks, and have them go around the table until they do that. And then if they fail, have consequences. Have a goal, have consequences. If they succeed, they got the goal. If they fail, here's the consequences. And then, like I said, social encounters, those happen so very rarely. Do social combats happen? A lot of GMs are shy away from them. All of these, mix them up. Don't just have all combat encounters, because if you have all combat encounters, you're going to be murder hobos and you're going to be bored after a while. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe your players just love combat and they hate social encounters. Okay, so still throw them a bone once in a while, and give them 4 combat encounters in a row, but then stick it to them a little bit and give them a contest where they can't fight their way through it. They have to win a race. Or they have to arm wrestle.
Right. Or when they finally got to the end of the dungeon and they killed the big bad, yeah! And then the little thief grabs the idol. Uh-oh. It's collapsing. There's a you need to get out of the dungeon before it collapses on you, and this big ball rolls you over, right? Hey, that's a skill challenge right there.
Skill challenge, yeah. Great stuff. So, cool. Yeah, that's our little tips on how to make your encounters better and memorable.
Yeah. Hopefully that helped you all a bit. And, drop us a line, send us an email, contact Tony on Facebook, and he'll let me know if any memorable encounters, or write us an email, tell us about a story of a recurring bad guy that you guys created.
Yeah, if I'll challenge you guys, if you send us 10 emails, not each. No. But a total of 10, we'll make a show just for reading the email.
Yeah, let's do that.
Of your cool encounters that you've done in the past.
Absolutely. Let's do it. There you go, everybody.
All right. 10 or more.
So the 10 of you listening out there, damn it, each one of you got to send us an email.
Or all 5 of you write 2. I don't care.
Or the 5 of you that are out there listening to it, write 2. Come on. All right.
So shall we set the tone?
Let's set the tone, bud.
So for setting the tone, I would like for us to sit down and design a memorable encounter in our settings.
Absolutely. Let's do this. Okay. You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
How about I go first?
Go for it.
Okay. So the Middle Earth setting I'm working on, and you mentioned it earlier, Mountain Pass. So I had that same thought as I was thinking of our show notes the other day. I'm thinking, okay, so there was that scene where they were going through the Mountain Pass, and snow is coming down, and there's this freaking storm, and
yeah.
What if they were attacked during that? Okay, so now you have a frozen mountain pass. It is thunder snowing. Mm-hmm. There is an evil voice on the wind, and you are pinned in by orcs, Gundabad orcs on one side, and Gundabad bats flying in and trying to pick the players up off the mountain and throw them off the mountain.
Oh, that is, first off, mean. But as mean as it is, it's cool. It sounds cool, too.
So what I have is basically 3 minion groups here. Okay. And those minion groups would be a minion group of orcs at the beginning of the pass, or on one end of the players, the top of the pass, beginning of another minion group of orcs at the bottom of the pass, and then I would have a minion group of bats trying to pick them off. Now, in this case, the consequences of and of course my goal for the players is for them to get through the pass without any of them dying. Okay, and so this is a modular encounter, can be plugged in anywhere through a mountain travel. Yep. I can set this aside and not use it ever, or I can have it when my players decide to pass through some mountains. Haha, here we go. Yep. All right, so I'm saying my players are. This is probably, if I'm thinking it's going to fall in the middle of a campaign somewhere, I'm probably going to have moderately XP'd characters. So I would probably have my orcs be probably groups of 4.
Okay.
Mini groups of 4 on either side of the party, and they have them pinned in. So not only do they have them on a mountain pass where I have slippery conditions, I have snow, I have lightning, they also have superior ground.
Yeah.
But they're also affected by the snow and the lightning and things like that too. So my minion group of bats, the consequences of what happens if a bat succeeds are really dastardly. So my minion group of bats is only 2.
Two bats.
2 bats.
I'm going to get them. Nice.
So that way it's an easier group to take out, but they have flight so they can get away.
Yep.
In between making dives to take out players. So
would you have those? So would you even Yeah, I mean you could do that. Have 2 bats. You can also have a group of 3 that only attack every other round.
That is maybe that you could do, or a group of 4 that only attacks every other round. Good call. So, that's because they're wheeling around and they're having problems with the wind and the snow too. I mean, bats don't handle snow well.
No.
So that's a great example of if I designed it with 4 bats and I'm finding my characters are having problems.
Yeah.
The wind picks up and I give the bats a problem too.
Right.
So now they can't attack every round. They can attack every other round.
Cool.
So that's a way to stay, modulate That's a way to modify the difficulty on the fly, based on where your PCs are at. And so that's kind of what I was thinking. And again, all I had for notes here: Mountain Pass battle with good to bad orcs and bats. But now I wrote that down, and then I fleshed it out. Now I just got to go find my minions, the 3 minion groups, appropriately give them weapons. Yep. Now, if all the orcs have bows, that's going to cause problems for the players because they get them in a crossfire.
Yeah,
not good. So maybe only one orc minion group has bows, and they're sitting up further up the pass, and they're the ones firing down the pass at the players.
Yep.
And then the other minion group, they have axes. Okay, so that's a way special equipment can come into it.
Yep.
And then, of course, with my bats, I want to make sure that they're pretty agile, so they have a great range defense, but I don't want them to have a lot of soak, because I want them to be quick to be taken out but hard to hit.
Yep.
So on top of the fact that you're going to have snow in the way causing all kinds of problems, their range defense is going to be pretty high. So there you have it. There's my encounter. How about you, Chris?
Very nice. Okay, well, really the only thing that I have written down, which was the other day when I sent you the notes back, was in Primeval Thule, my setting, which is a setting that is a Conan-esque kind of setting meets Cthulhu in a low magic, low fantasy, gritty system. I have written here slaver negotiation as a social combat skill challenge. And I hadn't thought about it until right now, because kind of going to do this on the fly here. So there is a main city in Primeval Thule, can't remember the name of it, that is basically, it's where a lot of the slave trade goes. And my concept here was the group was sent to do some sort of negotiation. Now, whether it's to free slaves, whether it's to purchase slaves on behalf of somebody, I don't know about that. But if I would
maybe it's to find a specific slave.
Maybe it is to find a specific slave, and to maybe go purchase this specific slave for, yes, I like that, for a noble in another city. Maybe his daughter was captured, he knows where she's at, and he's given them free range to go buy her for him, but don't really know that it's for him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But that's up to them. So I'm thinking of us making this a skill challenge because there are probably multiple stages to this, meaning they'll need to have to find the slaver, right? They will need to have to get an audience with this slaver, and then they would actually have to do the negotiation itself with the slaver. Okay. Now, this could be, I'm thinking maybe this could be a couple of encounters. Getting there is a big encounter, like doing an investigation to get there and getting in, and then that whole negotiation scene might just be round 0. Very potential to have a round 0. So but that's kind of what I came up with, and haven't really thought about a whole lot of else. But I'm thinking the slaver will be a nemesis.
Okay.
With a group of bodyguards, maybe a pair of bodyguards. So maybe there's 2 rivals in the room there at the end, in that final negotiation. And then as they're moving through, you just come up with various skill challenges. Now, when we do skill challenges, Tony, refresh me on how we would do a skill challenge.
So you would determine how many total successes you want your party to roll before they succeed at the skill challenge.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what I'll do is that number is, if there's a nemesis involved, half of his strain.
Okay.
You can get that is a good round number for a nemesis. Like I said, mid-teens for good nemesis for their strain.
Between 6 and 8 successes.
Yeah, so this is an average one. It's an easy one, and you want them to have a certain number of successes before they have a certain number of failed checks.
Yep.
So that's usually 2 to 4 failed checks,
cool.
Depending on how challenging you want to make the encounter.
Gotcha.
That's a great way to do a skill challenge. Another thing you can throw in there also, maybe instead of having all the guards be rivals, you could have all the guards be minions and have an actual rival buyer in the room.
Oh, I actually like that. Somebody who's trying to purchase this slave as well.
Yes.
Oh, I like it.
So now you have this end battle like it shows on page 240, where you have your nemesis, one rival, and one group of 5 minions. So you have your nemesis, which is the slaver himself, his 5 minions, which are his guards, and then one rival, which is this rival purchaser who is trying to buy the slave away that you're trying to buy for nefarious means.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And you've created an encounter, and you can do it as a social combat. You could do it as a combat. You could just leave it open and let the players do it the way they want to, based on their style.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, I like it, dude. See, and there we go. It's just that simple, everybody.
Yeah, nothing wrong with having a partner you can bounce your ideas off of too.
That is correct. That is correct. All right.
Yeah. If you know fellow GMs out there that talk, bounce your ideas off them. They will give you fuel for your fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they will. Because I'll tell you, GMs, DMs, we're the most. We can be some of the most nastiest bastards when it comes to somebody else's campaign.
Yeah, I noticed that. Hey guys, how do I handle this situation? My players, I hear, kill them, fuck them, do them, whatever.
Make sure they fall in the lava, you bastards.
Throw their baby in with them.
I don't think I've heard that one, but still, yeah.
Oh, sorry, that might have been me. I don't remember.
Nice. All right, so we just set the tone in each of our settings there. So if you guys have any memorable encounters as well that you've come up with on the fly, you 5 people, make that one of the 2 emails you send. Sorry. All right.
Excellent.
All right, let's go. Let's move on then, bud. We know what's coming next.
Advantageous Threats coming up. Yay!
Yay! Oh, hey, everybody. Welcome to our favorite part of the show, Advantageous Threats.
Yay!
Yay! And there was much rejoicing. Yay! Okay, buddy. All right, so my character today. We have Semwick, the halfling rogue assassin, has just been poisoned by a rival assassin during a knife fight.
Cool.
Semwick has about 6 wounds and 4 strain left.
Okay.
And needs to make a daunting resilience check, or he's going to suffer 8 wounds and 8 strain from, yes, everybody's saying, that's the serpent dagger from Realms of Tiernoth. Absolutely. He's got this dagger in his gut, and it's definitely a roll he needs to make here. Oh, crap, I got to get my dice out. Shit. So
I'm doing that too, but I'm on mute.
I'm not on mute. There's all my dice, everybody. Yep, all 3 sets of them. All right. So, his resilience check. Well, first off, Semwick, he's a halfling. He kind of got his brawn up to a 2. He's got a 1 point in resilience because, all thieves have to be able to suffer their own, be able to be immune to their poison a little bit. But, he knew he was going to go try and take out his rival. So he drank an immunity elixir before he started. So, my brawn of 2 for a resilience check. And he's got a resilience of 1. So that's going to be one proficiency die and 1 ability die. However, this immunity elixir allows him to upgrade resilience checks versus poison twice. So
cool.
That green goes to a yellow, and he gets to add another green. Now, daunting check here is 4 purple.
Yeah.
So that's where we're starting with. Tony, I'm going to be using a story point here.
Okay.
For Semwick, because this rival assassin of his actually was the one that murdered his minion, his mentor. So,
gotcha.
He's very he wants to make this check, and hopefully he won't die. What do you have for me?
Well, I have the fact that the dagger is still in your gut.
You damn it! You noticed that, did you?
So it's just pumping this magical poison. Or no, sorry, yeah, because it's magical, isn't it? The serpent dagger.
I believe it is. Yeah, it's a magical weapon.
So it's pumping this magical poison into you. So I'm gonna flip a story point and upgrade that, but I'm also going to provide a setback die.
Yeah.
Because, it's in you.
Yeah, it's still in me. Yeah, so I'm picturing this fight going, and he's got it like, we're like face to face. Kind of how in the movies, they're just chest to chest almost, and then you see one of the guy's eyes just kind of go
wide.
Yep, that's Semwick. His eyes just went going wide. All right. So there's my pool: 3 yellow, 1 red, 3 purple, and a black. Let's hope the odds are forever in my favor.
They usually are.
We'll see. Oh no. Okay. First off, it's going to be a failure.
Ooh.
He fails. He totally fails. So we've got 4. We have 2 failures.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, 2 failures with 1 advantage.
That's it? That's your net?
That is my net, bud.
Where'd your advantage come from? Where's the last advantage at?
That advantage came from one of my all 3 proficiency dice.
Right. So, but maybe it was from the upgraded one, so the advantage comes from his hatred of this guy?
Yes. Yeah, let's say that.
Okay. So, with your... Okay, so this is going to put you down.
Yeah. So he's going to take 8 wounds, 4 strain. He's going to be 2 over his wound threshold and 4 over his strain threshold.
So, what would you like to do with your advantage?
Well,
I have an idea as a GM.
Yeah,
I would suggest.
Sure, go ahead. Throw it out there, because at this point, I'm still stunned as a player that my halfling is going to die.
Right. And in this case, I would suggest that you feign death. When you go down,
there we go.
You pretend to be dead because you know that you can come back and strike the guy at another time.
Yeah.
Your hatred drives you to he's got me this time. I'm going to pretend to die so he'll think I'm dead and leave me for dead.
Sweet. I like that. So the advantage allows me to maybe make a bluff check. Sorry, not bluff. What are we talking?
Deception.
Deception.
Yep. The next round when he goes to retrieve his dagger out of your gut.
Yes, exactly.
He looks down and thinks you're dead. So
yes, he does. Well,
and it's something. Something
he might or might not, depending on how well my roll goes next session or next round, which we might do. Stay tuned, everybody. This might be continued next episode. We'll see. All right.
So I've got, given our entitle this episode, I went with an Oriental theme because, well, I'm a big fan of L5R, and because you mentioned it at the beginning of the show, you got me thinking about playing L5R.
That is true.
So mine is my character, Satsuki Isawa, or Isawa Satsuki, sorry, last name first, is trying to defeat a rival samurai in a contest of agility by negotiating an obstacle course with a small pebble balanced on our foreheads, while our hands are tied behind our backs. We are both down 3 strain and need at least 3 successes to win the race through the obstacle course. Okay. We are each at 2 successes and are on the last leg of the course. So
sweet.
So in this case, the GM has set the difficulty of the obstacle course with your hands tied behind your back and balancing a pebble on your forehead as being a 4 difficulty or a daunting challenge.
So this is a negotiation check? No, just kidding. Because you were negotiating the obstacle course. I'm sorry, that's dumb.
No, this would be a coordination check.
Yep.
So I have for Satsuki here, he would have a 4 agility and 2 ranks in coordination, for a grand total of 2 green, 2 yellow, and 4 purple dice.
So during this contest of agility, would the GM be rolling the coordination checks for the rival samurai as well?
Yes, and we would be trying to achieve
more successes than each other.
More successes.
So do you want me to build a pool as well?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So, and narratively, I'm not going to, because we're doing this as an opposed check, as a rival check, narratively, instead of spending a story point to upgrade my check, I'm going to spend a story point to upgrade the difficulty of your check.
Nice.
Because I am trying to actively knock you down.
While you do it.
And as we're doing the last leg of the course, I'm going to purposefully bump into you.
Nice. I like that. That's pretty good, dude. That is pretty good. So do you want me to use the same, what you have here, 4 agility, 2 coordination?
Sure, if you would like, or whatever you think the NPC should have.
Well, let's say he's not as coordinated. Or she.
Okay.
We're going to say she's not as coordinated as you.
Okay.
All right. And I'm thinking that this rival samurai's grown up with a bunch of brothers.
Okay.
And these, I'm gonna spend a story point to increase the success of this check that the rival will make.
Okay.
Cool.
So what is her pool then?
Her pool looks like it's 3 yellow, a red, and 3 purple. What's yours?
Excellent. It's the standard 2 yellow, 2 green, and 4 purple.
4 purple. What is the conditions out? Is it a rainy day?
Oh, it would be cool to have a very muddy obstacle course. Let's throw a setback die in for rain.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Anything else there? Do we have hecklers? Do we have people throwing shit at us, or is this a more of an honorable contest?
Well, it was honorable until I tried to knock you over.
All right, man. All right, let's go. All right, I'll roll 2. 1, 2, 3. Roll them. Oh shit! I think you're gonna like this.
Okay. First of all, my net is going to be 1 failure, 1 threat.
Well, I didn't do so good. I have, let me see. I have 0 failures, 1 advantage. However, I have a despair.
Okay.
As well.
So you have 0 successes or failures. So
yep.
I failed worse than you. Okay. But my roll was slightly better because all I had was a threat.
Yeah, I had one. I had 1 advantage.
Okay.
No, actually, no. Holy crap! I had one advantage. I have 2 failures. Sorry, I was matching the 2 failures.
Okay, so we had tied on number of. I had 1 less failure than you. Yes, I only had 1 net failure, 1 net threat. Okay, so we both failed. Mm-hmm. We do not complete the course. We both crash into the mud. Obviously.
Yep.
What? You're the GM here,
yep.
So you tell me. First, you tell me what the effect is.
I think the effect here would be because I'm going to say the despair is it actually.
Well, it's my despair to use.
Oh, it's your. Oh, that's right. It is your despair to use.
You get to use your advantage and tell me what failure means. That's all. Okay.
Well, what failure means is you don't complete the obstacle course, like you said. Okay. So the contest of agility hasn't been completed yet.
Okay.
And the advantage here that I'm going to use is maybe her pebble is still balanced on her forehead.
Okay.
Even after crashing into the ground.
And so my threat is that mine fell off?
Yeah, okay, that works. That could work.
Okay. I'm going to have her despair be that the daimyo who made us, the lord that made us do this contest, saw the 2 of us collide, but he interpreted it that she was the one trying to knock me over.
That's what I was going to say. Yes, definitely. I think so. And it's by default there. It's your contest. You won because he deems it so. Because she cheated.
Because she acted dishonorably, but she knows she didn't. Yep. So now I've created a recurring NPC that Chris can come back at me with later.
Absolutely, I can. And will.
Because she'll have a grudge against me.
Yep.
Because I behaved dishonorably, but I made it look like it was her.
That's right. Now, this isn't anything that would make her commit Harry Carey or anything like that. But no. It certainly pisses her off to the point where, you'll see her again later in the campaign. Sweet, nice. Dude. That's awesome.
That was an excellent one.
Yeah, it was.
So, that's how you do an opposed check, folks, or a rival check for a contest. You both set up, your GM sets a standard difficulty, whether it's between 2 PCs or 2 NPCs, your GM sets a standard difficulty. You determine what the result of the failure or success would be. The GM determines that, and then narratively the outcome of everything else.
Right.
And whoever has the better roll would be determined as the winner, even if it's a failed check.
Yeah. Yep.
You just won. You failed less than the other guy.
Exactly. That's right. When they count up the dice right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all good.
Anyways, okay, cool. All right, let's go end this thing then.
Yeah.
All right. All right, everybody. That's our show for the night. Oh, come on, send in those emails. Come on, we have some hooks out there for you people if you were listening closely. So let's shout out to the Mythic Gazetteer by Eli Kurtz. There was a
Gazetteer.
What'd I say?
You said Gazetteer.
Sorry, Mythic Gazetteer. Though there probably is some Gadgeteers in there too, maybe in the setting.
Yeah.
Anyways, there was a Kickstarter last year that they put out for the Blackwood Errantry Codex for Savage Worlds. It's available now. It's a I'd love to play in this, man. It's a fantasy setting inspired by folklore and high-flying martial arts action.
Woosha!
Woosha, that's right. It's Grimm Tales meets Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's The Witcher meets Kung Fu Hustle. It's Iron Monkey meets Brotherhood of the Wolf.
That's cool.
Damn, I have not seen that movie in forever. I gotta go watch Brotherhood of the Wolf. So you can find that out on Drive-Thru RPG. He's been interviewed on Wild Die and the RPG Brewery.
Because I interrupted you when you were saying his name.
Oh, sorry, Eli Kurtz.
Yeah.
He also has.
Hi, Eli.
Hey, what's up, Eli? You can find him at mythicgazetteer.com. Did I say Gazetteer again? Damn it. Mythic Gazetteer.
Do you want to re-record this whole segment?
No, this is just perfectly fine.
This is good stuff.
At Twitter, at Zap Dynamic. And then he's got a Google Plus page out there. All right, I'm done.
Oh, dude, I love busting your chops.
Yeah.
All right. So, and also we want to shout out to something coming up that we're going to be involved in. I am running a Genesis game at Nerds International Virtual Con 2 coming September 15th and 16th.
Nice.
I have a game. I don't even know if it's full yet, but I am running a game. There was a Kickstarter out there for a board game called Deep Madness. Ooh. And it's a Cthulhu-esque game that takes place in a underwater mining facility, deep sea mining facility. Ooh. And I am writing an adventure in that. And I am calling it Deep Madness, and I am writing that for Genesis, and I will be running that on Saturday night, Saturday the 15th. I haven't decided whether I'm going to run a second game that weekend, but I might. Mm-hmm. There's lots of good games to be had out there. There's more Genesis. I know someone's running Terranoth. I think Jamie was possibly going to run his Deadlands Genesis. I think there's probably, at this point, more Genesis games than Savage Worlds games. I'm just saying, Savage Worlds.
SWK, hashtag SWK, what?
Savage Worlds GMs, where are you? Oh. They're probably.
Damn it! I got to get in on that then. But I believe that's the weekend I game with my face-to-face group. Oops.
But yeah, so that can be found. We'll put a link in the show notes, but that can be found at the Nerds International Virtual Convention at WordPress.com, where you can sign up to run games and sign up to play them.
Cool. Rock on,
all right, so that also means. Huh? Yeah, oh, yeah.
Great show.
Fun, dude.
Yeah.
So you can contact us at findingthenarrativepodcast@gmail.com. Send your 10 emails, please.
Yeah.
Finding the Narrative on Facebook, you can message me over there. I will screenshot it and send it to Chris. Mm-hmm. And Finding the Narrative in the Nerds International Network on G+. Great group of people over there, and we're always over there busting each other's balls, posting weird memes about each other, and having a good time. A whole group of good nerds out there. Oh, yeah. And then, of course, listening to us on Podbean, iTunes, and you can listen to us on YouTube also.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
well, thanks for listening, everybody. That's it. That's our encounter foo.
So join us in 2 weeks when we discuss Adversary creation.
And I do believe we may have a special guest on.
We may. All right.
Stay tuned.
So this is Tony saying, keep rolling them bones.
And this is Chris saying, remember the rule of cool and just have fun, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Finding a Narrative podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned on this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of Finding a Narrative podcast. Copyright 2018, all rights reserved.